For Herlock Sol, I am Skeggy and welcome to the Norse Code. Today, we're going to cover a topic that I just taught a class on, rune casting. Before we get into that, however, I have a couple quick announcements. As you know, we have a Facebook page, the Norse Code Podcast, which I do hope you like and follow us there. We have Instagram at Skeggy_Vetter, VETR. I post there. I'm trying to post there more often. We have the YouTube channel, which some of you may be watching this on. And that is the Norse Code Podcast. And for those listening as just a podcast, not only are we anywhere that you can get your podcasts, but if you head over to the YouTube channel or the Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, you're going to find some stuff that I can't put as audio only, such as some crafting videos. I made a staff. I'm currently making a shield. So that should be coming out in 2-3 weeks. But we've added to our repertoire TikTok. I'm not happy about it, but it gets us out there. One of the big things that we are now doing that we just launched is Rune's Runes. Now, Rune is my beautiful children's python. And so I made a little table for her, throw the runes down on the table and let her go pick one. And that'll help guide you through your week. We do that every Woden's Day, or Wednesday for you normal people. And I do hope you enjoy it. We do have a video out talking about Rune and letting you get to know her. And if you're interested in that, maybe I could even pull her into the podcast a little bit. So check us out on TikTok. Go look at Rune's Runes. And we have a lot more planned that we can do with shorts and reels and TikTok. And I'm going to do some things on the runes and the Hovel Mall. And if there's anything else you guys like to see, let me know. I'm open to ideas. So, getting into rune casting. So let's start with the runes. The runes come from Odin. Odin, the seeker of knowledge and wisdom, he sought the power of the runes. He saw that the Norns were using the runes to guide our fate. And he wanted some of that power for himself. He wanted some of that knowledge. So, in order for him to receive those runes and to learn about them, he had to prove his worth. And to do so, he hung himself from the branches of Yggdrasil, the world tree, which grows from the well of Erd. And while hanging, he impaled himself with Gungir, his spear. And we will have an episode coming up shortly in which we talk about how Odin got that spear, because that's another really fun story to go through. And so for 9 days and nights, he hung from the tree, impaled by a spear, on the precipice of death. No food, no water, no help. And while the gods did offer to help him, he turned them down because he was trying to prove that he was worthy of the knowledge of the runes. So at the end of the ninth night, as he stared into the well, about to die, the runes showed themselves to him. They told him their names, their mysteries, their powers, and how to use them. And at that time, Odin fell from the tree, having gained the knowledge that he sought. And then he was kind enough to gift those runes to us. Now, the runes were primarily used for magic and divination, but they were also used as a written alphabet for the Norse people. They are a gift from Odin to mankind to allow us to connect with the gods, to connect with the Norns, and to connect to fate itself. Now, the runes that were obtained by Odin are known as the Elder Futhark. The Elder Futhark was used by the Norse for thousands of years. And then around the beginning of the Viking Age, you see the use of what is known as the Younger Futhark. This is a slightly different set of runes. And while the Elder Futhark was always used for writing magic and divination, the Younger Futhark was only used for writing. And when they did magic and divination, they went back and used the Elder Futhark. Now there's also the Anglo-Saxon runes, which are technically a offshoot of the Elder Futhark, but they changed so much once they got to England that while some are recognizable, they're pretty different. So we're not going to cover those here today. Now, one other thing I do want to talk about with the runes themselves are bind runes. Now, what is a bind rune? A bind rune is when you take multiple runes and combine them together to form a type of sigil with magical powers. And so you would choose runes that, maybe a rune that meant health and longevity, and a rune for, power and strength, and you would put those together to maybe heal a sick person. And just by combining those runes together into a single stave, into a single sigil, activates that magic. Now, how do you put those together? That's entirely up to you. Your creativity in that is part of what gives the bind runes their power. It becomes a very individual piece of magic. Some of the bind runes that have become famous over time is the symbol for Bluetooth. Bluetooth, yes, the Bluetooth, as in, your headphones and that, is named after Harold Bluetooth, King Harold Bluetooth, who was a Danish Viking king who had a fondness for blueberries, to the point that his teeth turned blue, hence the name Bluetooth. And the inventors of Bluetooth, who were of Scandinavian origin, wanted to honor their history. So they named it Bluetooth. And the symbol for Bluetooth is actually the runes Hagalaz, which stands for H, Harold, and Bracana, which is B for Bluetooth. Now, the runes themselves are broken up into what are called ayets. These are the tiers. There are three, that's the plural of ayets. And then there are three ayets. The first ayet, which is Freya's ayet, symbolizes the creation of the universe, order out of chaos, and the creation of all things. These runes include Fehu, Uruz, Thorzaz, Ansuz, Rydro, Kenaz, Gebel, and Wunju. And in case you're wondering where the name Futhark comes from, Fehu, Uruz, Thorzaz, Ansuz, Rydro, and Kenaz spell Futhark. So it's the first couple letters, kind of like the keyboard QWERTY is the first few letters on the top row. The second ayet, which is Heimdall's ayet, symbolizes the destructive forces. I'm sorry, I cannot talk today. These are the disruptive forces that cause great change in the energies established in the first ayet. These are Hagalaz, Nauthiz, Isa, Jera, Eowaz, Perth, Algiz, and Sowulo. And then the third ayet, which is Tyr's ayet, is about the gods and divinity and just life. These are Tewas, Berkana, Ewas, Manas, Lagus, Ingus, Dagas, and Othila. Now, I threw a lot of names out there. What do these runes actually mean? If you're listening to just the audio only podcast, this is where you're either going to want to go look up what these runes look like, or jump over to YouTube and finish watching this there so that you can actually see these runes, because they're really hard to describe. So going with Freya's Ayet, you have Fehu, which means wealth. And by the way, before I really dive into this, I could spend multiple episodes going over in depth the meanings of all of these different runes, and it's a lot to go over rune casting and the meanings of all the runes. So I'm going over just like the very high level meaning and not going in depth with it. And if you want, I can go do multiple episodes where we go through the runes in detail. I could also do that as shorts or reels on TikTok or whatever. If you want that, let me know. I'm happy to do it. If you're just interested in learning for yourself, I do recommend the book Runes for Beginners by Lisa Chamberlain. The first half of this book is how to runecast, and I don't particularly like this book for how to runecast. She treats them more like tarot cards than runes. But the second half of this book is all the meanings in depth, their normal meaning, their reversed meaning, their magical significance. It's a great resource. I still use this every day when I pull a rune. So going back to Freya's Ayet, first letter, which is the equivalent of our F, this is Fehu. It means wealth. Next, Uruz is you, and that is health. Thorazaz, which is like a TH sound. You also see this at the beginning of Thor, and a lot of times you'll see Thorazaz used as a symbol for Thor. This is breakthrough, strength, and power. Ansuz, which is an A, is communication, mouth, and Odin. Rido, which is an R, is travel. Kenaz, which is a C or a K, is wisdom. Gebo, which is a G, is gifts. Wunjo, which stands for W, is joy. Moving on to Heimdall's Ayet, you have Hagalaz, which is an H. This is rapid change. Nauthiz, which is an N, is need. Isa, which is an I, is stillness and ice. Jera, which is a J or a Y, is harvest and year. Awaz, which is typically an E, that's persistence. It also stands for the yew tree. Perthro, which is a P, that's fate and change. Algiz, which is a Z, is protection. And Sawillo, which is S, is success, victory, and good fortune. Now moving on to Tyr's Ayet. We start off with Tiwaz, which is often associated with Tyr himself, and it stands for victory, justice, battle, and sacrifice. Then you have Berkano, which is a B. It's birth, nurturing, and beginnings. Awaz, which is an E, even though it looks like an M, is friendship and travel. Manaz, which is the M, is humankind and culture. Lagus, which is an L, is love, dreams, sea, lake, emotions, water. Ingus, which is a NG sound, is seed, plenty, and nature. Dagas, which is a D, is enlightenment, hope, clarity, and revelation. And finally, Othala, which is inheritance, home. It is an O, and this also represents Odin. A little side note, you'll oftentimes see portrayed with Viking jewelry and stuff, the Troll's Cross. There has only ever been one Troll's Cross ever found. And it was a very poorly preserved and possibly archaeologically insignificant find. It's assumed that it's actually a hoax, and that what it actually is a misrepresentation of the rune Othala. And that one instance of Trollcross, and there's no reference to Trollcross anywhere in any of the sources, nothing in archaeology. One farmer claims to have found this on his property, came up with the whole story of it helping to ward off trolls. There's nothing to it. It's cool looking, but in terms of actual use, nothing really. And for those watching this on YouTube, the figure that you're seeing here showing all the runes, I pulled this from the website Viking Dragon, and I believe they're also known on Etsy as Gelling Dragon. They do a lot of jewelry and pieces of clothing and leather work. I bought a few things from them. Go check them out. So before we get into casting, you need to have your runes. So making the runes. Runes should be made of a natural material. Wood, bone, antler, clay, stone. I have a stone set and a antler set. My stone set I use with other people. I use my stone set for daily use. My antler is more for special occasions, and I only use that for myself. And I'll explain why in a little bit. Now, traditionally, you would have your rune set made from a branch of a fruit-bearing tree. So that's apple, walnut, because you can consider nuts a fruit in this case, cherry, something like that. You cut a branch and you cut it into little slices, let it dry out, and these are your pieces that will become your runes. And then you go in and you carve your runes into each piece. And then traditionally you would then paint your carved recesses. Again, if you want to be really traditional, you do so with blood, your own blood. People don't really want to do that nowadays. It's not very sanitary. So in place of blood, you could use red paint. Really, you could use any color you want, but if you want to be more traditional, it should be red. You could mix a little bit of your blood in with the red paint, which is what I did with my staff, which is here behind me. Or you could do a blooding ritual. Now, anything that you do with blood, whether it be actually using your blood, mixing it with the paint, doing a blooding ritual, whatever it is, that binds that rune set to you. It makes those runes speak for you. You should never use those runes for anybody else. Nobody else should ever be allowed to use those runes. They are your runes. If you want to be able to use runes for somebody else or let somebody else use them, do not do anything with blood. So, the blooding ritual. So the blood serves to activate the runes and create a close bond between ourselves and the runes. It's best to set up like a little sacred area, an altar type area, light some candles, incense, cast a circle if you wish, cleanse the space, make it feel comfortable, whatever you need to do to make it feel comfortable and put you in that right mindset. You arrange the runes in a circle. You recite invocation to Odin. Prick your finger with the sterilized needle, and one at a time, put a little drop of blood on the rune. And while you're doing that, say the name of the rune out loud, meditate on its meaning, and this will help bind that rune to you. Now, the invocation to Odin, I do have that here for you, and I will recite it for you. Hail, Odin, Lord of Asgard, warrior and wanderer, valiant and wise, you to whom all the gods of Asgard look. Skyfather on the eight-legged steed, you who traded an eye for wisdom and ruled a turbulent realm, give us the wisdom to accept the twists and turns of fate, even as you surrendered yourself to the mercies of the Norns. Protect us, all Father, from what harm may come to us. Lead us through the wilderness and bring us safely to the great hall that you reserve only for the brave of spirit. So that is the invocation to Odin that I recommend you. If there's other prayers to Odin that you'd like to say, by all means use it. That's the one that I like myself. Now, how to cast the runes. We're going to start simple and move towards more complex. Most simple is a single rune pull. In your bag of runes, you pull a single rune to answer a question, to guide your day, or to shed light on the events of the day. You could do this whenever. I personally like to do a single rune pull every day. If I do it in the morning, it helps set the stage for the rest of the day. If I do one in the evening, it helps me make sense of the rest of the day. Doing this has actually gotten me through some very hard times. It's a very practical thing to do. The next most common way and most simple way of casting runes would be a 3-rune spread, similar to what you would see in a 3 tarot card spread. So this could be past, present, future. So what has happened to cause your issue, what your issue currently is, and then what to expect. You could do it as a current situation, obstacle, advice. So it'll tell you what your problem is, what's causing it, and then how to get over it. And I'm sure there's other ways that you can use it. Those are the 2 most common. And as much as I dislike this method, you can use any tarot spread, but replace the tarot cards with runes. Essentially, they're doing the same thing. You are tapping into I guess you could call it the Akashic record. It is something above us, that fate, if you will, the Norns, the Akashic record, whatever it is you want to call it, some higher authority, and allowing them, that higher authority, to give you information through the tarot cards, or in this case, the runes. And I can tell you from my own experience that runes tend to be more accurate. When I taught this class, I had a few people in the class that were lifelong tarot card readers who live by tarot cards. And they even told me that as we were pulling runes, the runes they were pulling tended to be a bit more accurate and required less interpretation than the tarot cards did, which just kind of helps validate it for myself. Now, traditional rune casting, you would have a rune cloth. This would be typically a circular cloth with a circle upon it. And you would take your runes in your hand or in your bag or in a cup and then cast them out onto the cloth. Anything that goes outside the circle doesn't get counted. Any runes that are upside down and you can't see them doesn't get counted. So only the runes that are right side up and within the circle do you count towards your reading. You could ask a question before. You could just be asking for advice, or just whatever it is the fate needs you to know, what the gods need you to know. And you could cast your runes and then take the runes that are out there and use their meanings to kind of glean what it is the message is trying to get for you. A couple things is inverse runes. So this is if the runes are upside down, they have the inverted meaning of what they normally would. For single rune pulls, I don't do inverted runes. When I do a single pull, it's whatever I pull up, it's going to be right side. However, in a more traditional rune casting, I do take the inverted runes, and typically it's just the opposite meaning of what the the rune would mean otherwise. A very modern thing is to have a blank rune, or sometimes it's called the Odin rune. I don't like this. I'm not going to go over what it means because it's not correct. It's not supposed to be used. It's not how the Vikings did it. It's a very modern invention, and I don't really understand the rationale behind it. Why it's needed, especially considering when you cast runes, if they turn upside down, they're essentially a blank rune anyway, from what you can see. So I don't recommend using the blank rune. It's one of the things I dislike about Lisa Chamberlain's book, is that she's an advocate for the blank rune. Just don't use it. The Vikings didn't. There's no reason for us to start inventing new stuff. Now, if we really want to get complicated, we can use a 9 realms rune cloth. So this rune cloth is typically square, but it could be circular, with a small square in the center that represents Midgard, a small circle in the center, a larger circle outside of that, which is broken into 4, and that's Alfheim, Asgard, Hel, and Svartalheim, and then 4 lines creating an X coming out, and that exists outside of the outer circle, and that represents Muspelheim, Vanaheim, Niflheim, and Jotunheim. When you cast your runes into this, each one of those realms has a different meaning towards your life. So the runes that are face up in each one of those sections, it just helps add a little bit more meaning, and tells you this rune is talking about this aspect of your life. And then this rune over here talks about a different aspect of your life. It can make it more complicated. It could also kind of help guide you a little bit more. Now, each of the 9 realms has a separate meaning, as I said. And we're going to go through those fairly quickly. To begin with, you have in the north, so on the outside in the X, the topmost one, which would be north, that's Niflheim. That which resists you. Passive or restrictive influences from the outside, things tending toward dormancy, the deepest part of the shadow in the unconscious. This is the place from which conflicts originate. And then to the east, which would be to the right on the outside, you have Jotunheim. That which confuses you, that which may be left to chance, forces pressing for change, a realm of crisis. Disruptive raw forces of the unconscious, the disruptive urge, and the chaotic part of the self. Now we'll move into the circle, or into the second circle, which is divided into 4. In the upper right, you have Asgard. That's the northeast. And this is your higher influences, the nature of relationships with the divinities, the veiled branches of the question, matters of honor, positive influences from the past states of existence, individuality, your highest plane, your higher self. It's spirituality. Going back to the outer X, on the left-hand side, you have, in the west, you have Vanaheim. This promotes growth, erotic relationships, persons of the opposite sex, balancing influences, forces of continuity, structure, the well-being, and feeling. Coming into the inner, or the middle circle, that's split into 4, and the upper left-hand side, which is the northwest, you have Alfheim. This is the mental influences, family matters, messages from Hugin, which is thought, directions in which you should plan, what will help you, paths to help you realize, influences from Asgard. Right in the center, you have Midgard. This is the way people come together to manifest themselves in life, the outcome in life, the ego, the consciousness, the personality. It's also your lower self. It's your human nature, essentially. Back to the outer circle that's cut into 4. In the lower left, that's your southwest, that's hell. That's the hidden or suppressed instinctual desires, nature of automatic functions or behaviors, the hidden route of the question, negative influence from the past states of existence, destructive part of the feminine, hidden fourth aspect of the moon, the devouring part of the mother, the half alive, the half dead daughter of Loki. And then going to the right of that, completing your circle, you have Svartalheim in the southeast. This is your creative, emotional influences, money matters, messages from Moonin, which is memory, things you should reflect on, paths to realize influence from hell, sensation, taking base materials from the earth and transmuting them into your higher materials. This is building you back up, really. And then finally, on the outer X, down at the bottom, it's the south. This is Muspelheim. This is the state of vital energies, that which vitalizes you, active influences from the outside, and things tending towards activity. So you use those as your guides, and then whatever runes fall in there starts to tell you the story of what it is the fates need to tell you, what the gods need to tell you, what you need to know. So that is rune casting in a nutshell. It's not the easiest thing to go over this successfully without doing a demonstration. And while I could do that on YouTube, if you're listening to the audio only portion of this off your podcasting apps, you're not going to see that. So what I will do is over the coming week, I will record some of my rune casting and put it up on YouTube. Maybe make it a what are they called? Reels on Instagram, Facebook, allowing you guys, or TikTok, and allowing you guys to see it for yourselves. So be sure to like us on Facebook, the Norse Code Podcast. Follow us on YouTube, the Norse Code Podcast. Instagram, skeggy_vetter, and follow us on TikTok, the Norse Code. So thank you for listening and watching and liking, subscribing, all of that fun stuff, everything that we rely on you guys to do with every episode to keep us going, to keep us moving forward. I want to thank all of you for your time. Thank you for listening. Thank you for taking time out of your day to learn. There's nothing Odin loves more than you seeking knowledge from whatever source, whether it be me or books or another podcast or another YouTube channel, whatever it is. Always be learning. And for those of you who choose to learn with me, thank you. I can't tell you how much it means to me, how much I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And may the runes be ever in your favor. So until next time, thank you and have a good night.